Okay, here and we are ready. Hello. I have moved some things around in here, so hopefully it'll work well today. Anyway, hi, how are you? Happy Monday. We are back. I'm Lynell Ingram. This is my channel, Paint Fumes, and I make art. I paint a lot with acrylic, sometimes with watercolor, sometimes mixed media stuff. This painting I'm working on right now is all acrylic, and it's coming along. We've had 2 sessions with it, and I'm pretty happy with where my figure is at the moment. My next priority will be getting more the things that are happening around her kind of set up. So a little bit more background work, and then more detail and more of the things. So that's where we are. It's just going to be continuing to work with acrylic paint today. I might bring this around to being a excuse me a mixed media painting, possibly. I will have to decide that probably relatively soon here. Putting these for a second. I have a dry throat, and I don't know why, but anyway. So just working here is the plan, and I think I have everything I need. Although now that I'm thinking about it, I have this wild idea of possibly using some spray paint, like maybe now, just a little bit, maybe. Okay, well, the thing with that is I would really need to probably should really put up a drop cloth if I'm gonna do that. Unless, no, okay, getting ahead of myself. Let's not go nuts. Okay, so I'm gonna start building my palette here. Since I'm not just working on the figure, I'll be working on other things. I can build it a little bit differently than I had been. So starting with some Payne's Gray, that's kind of my black tone. Let me think here. What do we want for some background things? I definitely want try not to drop my palette while I'm trying to clear my throat. Must be allergies today. Okay, I got chromium oxide green I'm going to use here. And I'm not sure exactly how much of any paint color I'm using. I have only ever sort of a rough plan going into my paintings. I usually know I have my references for especially figures, and then some concept about how I'm going to lay things out and what I want to be happening, but I don't really work out all the details, generally speaking. So we will be kind of just letting it be a little bit kind of just by feel, a little bit instinctual, and just trying things. I'm just looking around at what I want to incorporate. So I put down some red, I got some medium magenta. And I was doing some different painting earlier today, and I had another tube of magenta that was just down to like, there was that much, about that much left in the tube to here. All empty there, just some up here. And I went to squeeze some out and it was completely dried. And it had the cap on it. It was sealed. That really irritated me, quite frankly. What is up? Why is that happening? Okay, and I have some yellow, which I thought I had another tube of this, because this is getting really low too. I thought I had another tube, but apparently I do not. This is not one I have a backup of. So if you saw my last stream, I was referencing needing to go get some materials and some supplies, and this it's another thing that needs to go onto the list of need to replenish. I can remember when I was teaching at the studio for a while. It was kids' classes and mostly working with acrylic paint with them. We ran out of yellow paint, like completely. It was like a week or two. We did have some, we had some like yellow oxide, but that was pretty much all we had. It was really interesting trying to work around that and try to not encourage the kids to pick out like daisies as a reference to work off of. Yeah, it was yeah, you never know. Okay, so I might have about what I need to get started here, and last time I used some acrylic retarder gel. It's Utrecht stuff. There we go. Sorry. Which I really, really like. I'd forgotten I had this, and I'd been using another, like a fluid, more fluid medium for slow dry, but this is so much better than that was. So I'm gonna, again, put some of this on my palette, and it's really jelly. It's, you see that jiggle? Not as solid as Vaseline. But very, 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 very gelatinous. But man, high recommend on this one. This is good stuff. Okay. Let's see here. I think I might work a little bit more into some of the background areas. I'm actually going to start out with my palette knife here. Oh yeah, I was telling how my magenta paint ended up being completely dried out. That was really upsetting. Luckily, I did have an additional one of those because that was one of those things where I thought I had been out of it at one point when I really wasn't. So I bought it when I actually didn't really need to. But lucky for me, I had it because turns out I needed that. Okay. Actually covering some of what I did here last time up a little bit. Because it wasn't quite working for me and I want to change the shape of this. It's like flowers cascading out of her head. So I wanted to change that. That might work. Okay. I might decide I want... I'm using a relatively smallish palette knife right now. I do have bigger ones, but grabbed this one for whatever reason. I had something else in mind to work on with it, and since it was just right next to me, I just grabbed it now too. Maybe I'll switch it up for the time being. Grab a bigger one. It's my trusty guy. He's a little bit bigger, nice and flexible, nice and sharp. About a ½ inch across, probably about 2.5 inches in total length to the fine point, and it's at about a 45-degree angle, which makes it really nice to work with. And I like this one for laying down pretty controlled. Controlled bits of color. it's been a beautiful day today. I don't have the window open in my studio tonight just because I have the blinds closed to control lighting. And there's a little bit of a breeze, and I thought that if that whacking around at all, that would be get pretty annoying. So I did shut for tonight, but it is nice to be able to enjoy the fresh air for a little bit longer, even though it does seem a little odd. Unseasonably warm, but can't complain when it's 60 degrees and sunny in November, middle of November. I think I'm probably gonna need some more of my paint spray. I'm using this up pretty quickly. Now when I paint with a palette knife, it does use your paint pretty quickly. It doesn't spread it as thin or evenly because when you're using a paintbrush, but the flip side of that is that it allows you to get some pretty nice textures, which can be very desirable depending on what you are doing and trying to achieve. There's my rag. Okay. Let me grab my paint. I already went through that entire bit that I put down. But I'd rather put down not enough paint and have to add to it than have too much down and not use it, because it can become extremely wasteful, and you know, it's not the cheapest thing to keep up with paints when you're painting a lot. So you just try to be reasonable with your supplies, and it's always a struggle, especially working with acrylics, because they dry so fast. So I can't like work for a couple of hours here, and if there's still paint on my palette when I'm done, I can't leave it there and then come back to it tomorrow and paint again. It will be all dried up. It'll be dried up shortly after I'm done painting, after a couple of hours. It just doesn't stay wet very long. And by using a slow dry medium, I buy myself a little bit of extra time, but that it helps me a little bit more in terms of extending how long it's wet on the canvas, so that I can do some blending on the canvas if I want to. A little bit. But it's not gonna keep my paints wet for hours. You're just never gonna get an oil paint type of experience, like a truly oil paint type of experience in terms of drying times, if you're using acrylic paints. But there's other advantages and disadvantages, both. One thing is the non-toxicity. You don't have to worry about fumes or disposal of anything, because once the once this paint, the acrylic paint, is dry, it's basically inert. Like, it's just like plastic. So you can just scrape it off your palette, or if you're using a palette pad like I am, a paper pad at the moment, you can just tear off that sheet and throw it away, and that's completely fine and workable that way. Building towards it being fairly dark at this point. I just kind of want that as the base to work on top of. And this might look like a lot of chaos and mess that I'm adding on. Yeah, well, yes, it is. No doubt about that. I'm not worried about like losing my figure to it because of the level of contrast that I'm using. She's going to be the lightest and brightest large area of color on this. So she is going to draw your attention. And that's not going to get lost. Not with anything that I have any intention of adding on here. Okay. I'm going to switch over to a brush. All right, what do we want? Making a medium-sized flat brush. This guy. There we go. You can actually see what it is. All right. But it is my intention to keep things fairly dark in a lot of the area around her, not completely. Because I do want her to pop. Even if I add a lot of textures, I want her to pop more so than anything else. And before I get into too much detail on anything else that I'm going to add in here, with details here or with these kind of synapses that I'm going to start painting more in, I want to have anything that's going to happen behind them, you know, we will set. not too concerned about if I need to paint over something and I decide I want to add it back. Not a problem. Okay. Getting close to being satisfied enough with adding on this part of background. Sometimes I paint a bunch and then I end up deciding maybe I'll need to cover it all up again. It happens too, because like I said, I'm just sort of letting the process happen a little bit. And then seeing how it's working and then making adjustments based on that. My main goal at this point is to try to just sort of determine where things are going to be in the background, the tone, the overall tone, and to make sure that I don't have any bare canvas, or I don't truly bare canvas because I did put a wash over it, but I don't want to see that poking through in the areas where I'm going to paint something today. And for now, it can stay on the bottom of my canvas. There we go. So along here is still pretty empty. Not worried about that at the moment. I will deal with that over time. Not necessarily today. Just isn't where my mind is at the moment. All right, that seems pretty good for now. So I can start to work on some of the more interesting things, maybe. I find painting to be like a really, really nice kind of a stress reliever. It can be pretty easy to get into a sense of just deep concentration where you kind of lose track of time and you're just very much absorbed in what you're doing. And there's something almost magical about those moments. There's actually a whole ton of information available about how it really is advantageous to mental health. Even doodling, tracing, anything like that. It's really it's legit. It gives you some of the same benefits that meditation does. If you can kind of just relax into it. But the trick to being able to do that is definitely not treating it as something with a lot of expectation to it, to how it turns out. You just want to be willing to kind of let go and just be creative and play. Because perfectionism just brings more stress. It's definitely an enemy of ever being productive with anything. Turns out that perfectionism is like another form of anxiety. So time to get away from that, right? Easier said than done. That I know. All right, this is kind of working for me. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure that I'm not blocking the camera when I kind of lean over to see a bit. Okay, I think I might go to a slightly smaller brush. I'm able to get a decent amount of like controlled detail with this flat brush. It's not quite a half an inch. It would be like 3/8. We're gonna go a little smaller. This one, I got one that's about 1/4 of an inch, still a flat brush. You can see it. Okay. Yeah, this is doing all right. One thing that I've learned is a downside to working with palette paper and acrylic paint, and this is on me, is I don't, like I used a corner of this paper earlier today, and I'm like, well, I don't need to put a whole new fresh sheet on there. That's wasteful. I can put these paints on top. Well, as I'm working with paints, and it's on top of what's dried on the palette paper, it's kind of picking it up in little chips almost, like plasticky little bits of the dried paint are coming up with it, and that's not really what I want to happen, so be careful with that. What I was actually looking at before I started painting this was bridal flowers, actually, of all things. Just, that's what came up when I just randomly, like, I need a cascade of flowers. So, yeah. You never know. There was a point in time in which I was doing some illustration work, and it was there was a project that I had that was kind of a little bit comic book-esque, and I had to look up different types of weapons and things and bombs and stuff, and I'm like, man, I gotta be on some FBI watch list after that project. It's years ago. Hopefully I'm off of it now. Mind Meets the Universe. Hello, thank you for joining, and thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. Thanks for stopping in. Just sort of feeling it right now, feeling it out and seeing what I like. I definitely want to have some of this cascade come down, like even as far down as this, like her lower back. So I need to continue to build a little bit more of that. Let me get some darker green mixed up too, because I do want some shadow greens in there where the light wouldn't be hitting it so much. Could be a little darker. You know, it's funny, I never paint flowers, almost ever. And I never did. It was just something I was never very interested in. Especially when I was younger. But I have this painting and one other one that I'm putting flowers in now, so I guess you just never know. You never know what's gonna interest you at any point, so pays to try to create about anything. You never know where anything's gonna take you. But for sure, anything that I was interested in painting when I was younger, even in college, is not anything like what I do now. Waiting for the highlights, it's gonna put the flowers together. Oh, thank you. I'm trying to kind of just block things in before I do like strong highlights. I just want to kind of know where it's gonna be. It is getting very messy. Yeah, it's too dark. Or too dark as I paint bright white. That was too light. Sometimes the wires just get crossed when I'm painting. If we're being honest, it's when I'm doing anything. Anything at all. let's see. Kind of just figuring out my color here. Step back for a second. When I'm looking over here in this direction, I'm looking at my computer screen because my studio is pretty small. I can only step back to about here. So by looking at what the camera is capturing on my computer screen, it's like I'm seeing it from all the way across the room, a decent sized room. So that's why I sometimes am looking over there, just in case that looked weird. Okay, moving along. Okay, I think I'm starting to feel good about that. Have a slight desire to pump the darks a little bit more. No, I know what I need. Let's see. If I do that, then... Every now and again, you paint something and you kind of surprise yourself with it. I don't know, random. But I think I'm pretty happy with that. And when I say that, that usually means I'm gonna keep going back in and making more minor adjustments, but it also means I'm close to being ready to move on to things. Okay, I think I'm going to switch over now to working more on what's happening over here. Another color I was thinking about, but I'm not sure if I have it. Check my drawer over here real quick. Okay, I wanted to grab my phthalo blue, which I might want more of. That's what I get. This really beautiful blue tone. Phthalo blue with like a little bit of white gets a really lovely color to it. But maybe, okay. So for this, I don't want to use a flat brush. I would like something with a nice point on it. There's my guy. If I can get it where you can actually see it. Ah, I'm not good at doing things a little backwards into the camera. There. It's like a number 6, maybe? 4. It's a number 4. Round brush. Ooh, I did a really job of cleaning it last time. I got a great, nice little point on there. Impressed with myself there. Okay, quick swig of water. It is helpful to stay hydrated when you are working. When you're doing anything. In fact, okay. So we've got blue. All right. Rather than the paint I went looking for just a second ago, I'm grabbing my deep green permanent. Which is a color I've had for a long time, but I often don't find the use for it. It seems, I tend to feel like it's a little too bluish. It's kind of darker. I don't know if I can put it somewhere we can actually see. Yeah. It's very bluish colored. But I do think it might work for what I want to accomplish. We'll see. We will give it a go. The only concern I have is how close it's going to be to the green that's already on the behind it. So I just need to adjust how bright or dark it is at any point there. It is a bit of a transparent shade, but you mix it with something else that has any lightness to it. Like a little bit of turquoise, and that kind of pulls it out. Keeps it from disappearing. And if my paint is sufficiently fluid, I can use even this brush, which isn't super tiny, and get some really fine lines on here. And highlights don't always have to be white. I'm using, like, there's white in turquoise, but I'm using the turquoise paint to be the highlight on this particular strand that I got going here. Watched that new movie this weekend, The Killer, David Fincher movie with Michael Fassbender. I thought that was, it was fun. It was pretty good. Just happened to be for free on Netflix, so gave it a shot. I know Netflix isn't technically free, you pay the subscription, but you know what I mean. Didn't have to rent it. It wasn't groundbreaking or anything like that, but enjoyable. Watched a couple of older movies too. Nothing particularly good. One was, I think, another Netflix one, Sister Death. Like creepy nun movie, I guess. It was okay. Very much okay. It was a Spanish horror film. And then I watched a movie that really irritated me. I kind of picked it out a little randomly. It had good reviews. It was written by the guy that wrote Taxi Driver and some other movies that are kind of, you know, classics, considered classics, and it had a couple of good actors in it, so I thought, well, that's worth giving a shot. And I was so annoyed at it, and just I thought it was so awful and a little pretentious in a way that it didn't deserve. I didn't think it deserved to be. It was called stupid movie. What was it? It had Ethan Hawke was the star. Life Reformer or something like that. Life Reformation. It's like the name of this church. And it had all this like existential crisis because of environmental issues and pollution and like that. I don't have a problem with that. Like, I agree with those issues being really important, but it felt so unearned and ham-fisted the way that they did it, and they used stock footage, and I didn't buy the character's transformation. There's like all these things that I really didn't like about it, and then I was really confounded by like it having pretty outstanding reviews. I don't know. Maybe I'm too simple to get it, but I kind of feel like it feels like it fooled people into thinking that it was something more clever than it was. Because it didn't. I called what was going to happen in the movie really early on, like before the halfway point. It seemed really obvious to me. I'm like, oh, so this is going to be, knowing that the author or the director and the writer was the guy who did Taxi Driver. I'm like, so this is Taxi Driver but with the environment and religion? That's all? Is that really all this is going to be? And I kept watching it, even though I felt like, oh, the dialogue, it's so cheesy and ham-fisted. I'm like, okay, it's got to be better than that. It's got to come around to something smart. Like, it's just got to. And when it didn't, and it ended, and I'm like, really? That was all you had? That's all you had for me? Ended exactly the way, like, it just went all exactly the way that I thought it would. Disappointing. I guess I was disappointed. I thought that given, like, the caliber of the people involved, that it would be, and the fact that it had such good reviews, that it would be something more interesting. And I was disappointed. It happens. Sometimes you're just not gonna like the things that other people like or whatever, or get it in the same way that they do. But, oof. I was just completely confounded about everything with that film. here we are coming along a little bit. I need to decide what other colors I want here, because I want to build these up to be a few, like at least a few more than I've already got here. I think anyway. As I get up to this much lighter area, I am having to add in more white to get a sufficient highlight on there. I was actually a bit under the weather this last weekend, and that's why one of the reasons I was able to watch several movies. I also, there was one other one. What was it on? I think it was on HBO Max, which I don't know. Not so sure is worth keeping as a subscription, but have it at the moment. It was called A Hole in the Ground. It was kind of funny because it was about Irish folklore, and I recently watched a movie that was like, I think last month. A movie that was kind of about the same element of Irish folklore. So just, you know, sometimes there's just something in the air. Maybe, I don't know. Come across similar things. Makes you pause for a second. But it was well done. I liked it. Again, not like a super deep movie or anything, but entertaining. I feel like kind of sort of scary movie based off of folklore. Make tea before my evening streams anymore. I never was a big tea drinker, but been kind of enjoying doing that, and I did not get it done today. Time just got away from me. I was trying to get done so many things. I got a new tea I'm kind of excited to try. It's one that's like a adaptogen thing. I'm probably saying that wrong. Adaptogens, it's this one in particular. It's called a anti-burnout tea that I happened to pick up to try, so let's see how that one is. My cat is very sweetly curled up right behind me while I'm painting. He's snoozing. He's kind of, I think, become used to my schedule of doing this and what I'm doing. Although he gets impatient at a certain point. And at that point, everything's off the wall. Everything's out the window in terms of how much work he lets me get done. You've made a couple streams kind of interesting, for sure. Okay. We'll go maybe with a deep red. Maybe a little bit of a magenta color. Another one. Not too bright. Getting to have chunks of dried up paint for anywhere that I haven't mixed in my, what do you call it? My retarder gel, acrylic medium. Just adding a little bit of magenta because a little too red. And not every red and blue makes a pleasant magenta color, all said and done. And I'm not going for the same tone of, like, as pink of a magenta as I have right out of that tube. But, okay. My brush is getting pretty saturated with paint, but... you know what? I'm gonna clean it off and maybe get out a fresh brush. And that's the downside to using brushes instead of palette knives to mix your paint. Okay. Number 3 round. It's not as nice of a point, but once there's paint on it, it'll probably be fine. Okay, let's see. Not loving this brush as much as the other one. Just not getting as nice of a point on it, but I'm working with it. Now my white paint is about kaput. In terms of being dried out on my palette, it's just once you reach about the 1.5 hour point, working with acrylic paints, that tends to be the way things go. Which also doesn't help with trying to keep that fine point to control the line work here. I'm gonna need to go back and add shadow into her hand here. No doubt about that. My white paint is just like super thick and gooey right now. Yeah, it's getting a little more difficult to work with. Yeah, I'm getting to have like some thick chunks of my paint, so I'm gonna need to call it here pretty soon. You can fight your medium so much, but only so much. Okay. I think that this is the point. I am going to call it at this point. I've gotten a lot, not done on here, but there's still quite a lot, I feel like, to come. As I'm doing more, I'm seeing things that I'd like to adjust in the figure now, like where things that I'm adding might cast shadow against the skin and things like that, like especially the hand, maybe part of the arm, things like that. Although I might want to make sure I'm done with this part before I do that, just to be safe. As of now, I'm happy with the flowers that I've added coming out of her head. So I think that those will, I mean, yeah, I'm gonna sleep on it and look at it really well tomorrow and decide if I still feel that way, because that's always a question. But yeah, I mean, good place to stop for now. I just sort of, like, my brain's just chewing on it still. I think I'd pull some of the colors from the flowers more in here into maybe a few more. Yeah. I'll sleep on it. I'll sleep on it and decide how exactly I want to handle moving forward with this. Some things are coming well. Pleased all in all at this stage of the game. Sometimes you get to places where things get a lot worse before they get better, and knock on wood, has not happened really here yet. So we're gonna call it for tonight. Again, I've said that like 6 times. Thank you so much for joining. I will be back at this painting on Thursday morning. It'll be 10 a.m. the Central Time in the US. So please join me and see where this ends up, what chaos so we can continue to add and what we can make out of it. So I hope to see you then. In the meanwhile, if you're still here, if you're still watching, please know that I appreciate you. And if you enjoyed, maybe give a like or subscribe if you haven't, because I do this twice a week, every week, always making something, always working at something. Sometimes it's great, sometimes, I mean, it's just real, the creative process and all its glory and ugliness. So I hope to see you again, and thank you so much for joining me, and have a great night. Hopefully see you Thursday.